everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Sanjay Prakash and I am a Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft MVP. Today in this video, I'll tell you about late binding and early binding. In our development journey, we write many custom code to enhance our Dynamics 365 projects, right? So you might be aware of writing this type of code in your plugins or in your custom console applications or in your custom workflows, right? Now either you may follow late binding or you can follow early binding to write down your custom code for your plugins or for your custom workflows for your console applications. Now let us understand what is all about late binding and early binding and the differences between them. Let us first understand about late binding. In the late binding, we use entity class, right? Here you will see we are using entity as a class, and that entity will be used to have the logical name of the entity. Inside that we have to first dynamically, then all this information, whether it is the property, let's say name is the account name, credit on hold is another property of the account record, right? So all these names is given dynamically by taking the metadata information. So you should be knowing the actual logical name of this field values whenever you want to use late binding, right? So there are some advantages and disadvantages. Advantages in late binding is you use entity class and the runtime validation is done. Okay, so when you compile your project, these names are not validated. So these are validated in runtime, and if there is any mistake you have done in the spelling and all the other things, then that will be captured in the runtime, right? Now you do not need to generate any proxy class or any CRM entity class for this. So you can directly use this programming model, late binding model, to write down your code. And we can avoid large generated files. Normally what happens in the early binding, we have to generate CRM class files which contains all the entity and attribute definitions. That's why the class file that generates becomes larger, more than some MB, right? It's maybe 40 MB, 50 MB, like that. So you are not required to generate any class for this late binding. You just write down and everything is validated in the runtime by the system. Disadvantages of late binding is you do not get compile time validation on names of entities, attributes and relationship. Whatever you provide here, the entity name and attribute name, that are not validated while you compile your project, right? It is only be validated on the runtime. So if you do any mistake on here by typing this attribute name, then it will throw error. So it is always best practice to go for metadata browser to identify the exact logical name of the column, then you can put it here. So you need to know the names of the attributes and relationships in the metadata, right? If you only know the logical name or the metadata information of a specific entity or column or attribute, then you can go for it. So this is the disadvantage. So you should be knowing before that what is the name, and you can use metadata browser tool to identify the names, logical names of these fields and entity information. Now so you understand what is the advantage and what is the disadvantage of late binding. Let us go to understand about early binding. In early binding, the advantage is compile time validation. You can see here we are not using any logical name in double quote. These are all schema names that we are using. And in Visual Studio, if you type the account entity, then if you click dot, it will show you the entity schema name of this attribute. So it is easy to use, easy to identify which attribute you are trying to assign value. So there are many advantages. There is a compile time validation. So while compiling, if you do any mistake, it will throw error. So it will avoid runtime errors. Most of the times, if you follow late binding, you will get many runtime errors like key not found, like that. So in here in early bound, you can get compile time validation, but you have to generate the class file for this using CRM SPC util.exe. I will show you in this video in details how to generate and what is the problem. So classes and properties use respective schema name property. You can see here these are the schema name properties, schema name of the properties of this entity. So you are not required to remember what is the name of the attribute or field name. No need to check metadata information. Also, the most importantly, Visual Studio IntelliSense. Okay, when you click dot after the entity name, then it will give you the list of attributes with schema name, so you can use it, right? So better error fix and compile time, less runtime error. Okay, so if you take this approach, then you will get very less runtime errors, because most of the things are fixed in compile time. The disadvantages is large class file. Whenever you generate the proxy class of CRM class with entity and attribute definitions, then the size of the file becomes more than some MB, which is not good, right? The size matters, so it is a big disadvantage. Now you can ask me, what should I follow? Whether I will follow early bound and late bound. You can see here, these are the differences. If you use early bound, you can verify entity, attribute and relationship names at compile time, which is very, very important, right? But in late bound, there is no compile time verification, right? Only whenever you upload your code, whether you upload your plugin or custom workflow, then only if there is any error in the name of the properties or entities you have mentioned, then it will throw error. So I personally suggest to go for early bound, but it requires some additional step to do, right? Generating classes and adding that class in the custom code plugins and all that. You must generate entity class. No need to generate entity class. So for faster code written, then you can go for late binding also, right? Better IntelliSense support. Visual Studio give you better IntelliSense for early bound, but in late bound there is no or a very less IntelliSense support. Early bound less more readable code, more but less readable code, right? Here, because the IntelliSense used for schema names, that's why it is more readable, but here this is less readable. Very slightly less performant, very slightly more performance, right? So in late bound, the performance is better than early bound. Now you can think of that what you can do, and both has their advantage and disadvantage, but I personally prefer late binding because always I need to generate classes for early bound. That's why I don't want to do that, but it is always the best approach if you are working on some large projects. Okay, now let us go for demo. So let us see how the late binding code is written here. You will see here, this is a plugin, right? And in this plugin here I am trying to create a record using late binding. I have created an entity class here. Let me zoom it for you, right? Now here I have created entity object, and entity object class will, I have taken a variable here, and inside that variable I am assigning logical name of the entity, and using that object I am assigning different properties with different values, right? So these values, this property name should be properly identified, otherwise there will be error. So there is also an easy way to find out this. Let's say you want to find out the a specific field logical name, so you can use some tools already available, right? If you go here, let's say I want to open any entity, and I want to find out, let me go to related student payment, and I'll go to click on student payment. So I just want to identify what is the logical name of this amount field. Then I can switch on the level up extension for the Chrome, then I can click on this logical name, so it will give you the name. So I can copy this and put it here, right? This way I can avoid using the early bind classes, right? So I can directly copy paste from here. No need to go to metadata browser. You can just use level up extension and your work is done, right? Now this is the formatting of late binding. No need to generate any class. But what if you want to generate, if you want to write your programming in early bind? You can see here there is a early bound concept I have written in the below, right? Let me comment it out, right? So this one is early bound. Okay, now directly your entity object is available here, and using that entity object you can use the schema name of this field, the same thing, the same corresponding, this is the late binding and this is the early binding, same code, right? Now you can see here, this is the schema name, how well formatted. If you click on dot also, it will give you the list of columns for you, but in case of late binding, it will not be available. Now this looks okay, but for this scenario, for this early binding, you need to generate a class, right? So what this class? So this is the class actually. If you see here, this is a class that I have generated. So using CRM service util. Okay, so this class needs to be generated before using early bind. So let us see how we can create an early bind class so that we can use early bind programming in our custom code, right? So first thing is, you have to right click your project and click on manage NuGet package. If you click on manage NuGet package, you will find there is a assembly called as Microsoft CRM SDK core tools. Okay, so you have to search this, and if you click this, you will see there is a install option. I have already installed, but you have to install it. Once you install it, it will be installed in your directory. So once it is successful, you can go here and right click on open folder in Explorer, and if you click on packages, you will see the core tools is available here. If you go to content and bin and core tools, you will see the CRM service util.exe, right? Now this tool can be used to generate early bind class so that you can use in your custom code. Now how it is called then? The first thing is, you have to go to your start menu and search command. Open the command developer command prompt for Visual Studio. The next thing is, you have to navigate, or you have to change your directory to the directory where your CRM service util.exe is available. Now I can copy this entire path where it is downloaded, and I can paste here. So before pasting I have to use cd to change the directory and click on hit enter, so that you can see the corresponding command prompt is pointing to the current folder, right? Now here I can use some CRM SBC util command to generate early bind classes. Here I have mentioned here in this slide. You can generate proxy classes or CRM classes for all entities, and sometimes if you generate all entities, then the size is bigger. So first let us see how all entities can be created. So copy this and go to Notepad to format it properly, right? The first thing is, you have to define CRM SBC util, then /URL. You have to give the organization URL of your environment. From where you can get this organization URL? If you go to advanced settings, you will go to developer resource area, and here you can find out the organization URL. So you can copy this and you can paste it here. Next, out is the location where you want to store your class file, early bound class file. So I am using C drive and document folder with name earlybound.cs. That means it will store in here. Let me delete this first. So I want to store the .cs file which will be generated here. So the point here is, you have to give a location. Okay. Next, username. Username is the same that you are logging your dynamics, and password I have given, and the namespace. Namespace will be used whenever the class file will be generated inside that, right? And in the service context name, you have to pass a service context name. It's for your choice. Now I will copy this entire and go to here and right click and hit enter. Now what it will do, it will try to generate a .cs file by connecting the metadata information from my server and generate a .cs file whose name is earlybound.cs file with all entity and attribute definitions. It will take some time to generate. Let us wait. Now after 5 minutes you will see the file is already written, right? It written 1246 entities and everything, the definition and details. You will see this is the earlybound.cs that has been generated in my machine, right? This is the earlybound.cs, and you can see if you mouse over, this is the size is 40.7 MB, and which is huge, right? If it is 40 MB, you should not add this in your plugin and custom workflows, because it takes your server size, right? Now it is always a very bad practice to generate your earlybound class for all entities, because we don't need, right? If you go here in my code, I just need payment line entity to create records, right? But the earlybound that is generated is of having 1246 entities, which I don't want, right? Unnecessary, the size is increasing, which I don't want. So instead of generating, but if you don't want and you want to follow only the same procedure, you can just right click and copy. After generation, copy this and you can go to your plugin project and paste it here, right? You can paste it here, but again you cannot upload this plugin, register this plugin if it is 40 MB size, right? So in online you cannot register this if it is more than 40 MB. So you should always make sure that generate the proxy classes or earlybound classes only for selected entities. So if I want to create payment line entity, then I want only payment line entity proxy class. So that is not straightforward. So that requires some extension to this CRM SBC util. It requires some extension for CRM service util, right? So for that we need to have a project, class library project, which takes some references like CRM SBC util. I have already created this project where I have taken CRM SBC util reference, XML SDK reference, and system runtime serialization references, right? And I have taken a code writer file where I am filtering only for the entities that require extraction of CRM earlybound classes, right? For this I have taken a XML file, and in this XML file I am storing here for which entity only I want to generate the earlybound classes, not for all. And this filter.xml file is used in the constructor. Here I am reading in the constructor that whatever entities that is available in the filter XML, that only used to generate class definition file, right? So this project, this is a separate project I have created, and this filter XML is used to update which entities you want to generate. And this total project I have already uploaded in my GIT Hub account. If you search Mastrotex, also I have already shared this in LinkedIn. You can download this project and run it. So you have to just update this filter.xml with your entities and run the project. That's it. So not run the project, build the project. Once you update your entities in this filter.xml and build your project, what it creates the DLL, right? Because it is a class library project. So if you go here in the folder in Explorer, in the new project, in the bin folder, you will find the SBC util filter.dll, right? So you do not need to do anything, do not research anything, because I have done the research. So what you need to do, you just download this project in your machine and open this filter XML, right? In the filter XML, you update your entities, what you want to generate the classes, for which entity you generate classes, then build the project, Once you build, open the project's files in Explorer, go to bin and go to debug, and just copy the sbc util filter.dll and the filter.xml. These two file just copy from here and paste in the location where your CRM core tools are installed. Here you see, here the core tools are installed in NuGet package. So here I have pasted filter.xml, and the next one is this one, SBC util filter. This one and this one I have copied from the new project, and make sure the CRM SBC util is already available in that directory, because this is the core tools that has been downloaded through NuGet package. Now once it is done, you have to run another command. That command is this one, right? Let me copy this and go to a notepad and paste it here. Here everything is same, except I have just used the name as early bound filter. You can use it as your name, any name of your choice. But at last there is another command called as code writer filter, and you have to use the class name of the extension sbc util filter dot code writer filter and sbc util filter. This is the class name. If you check here, this is the class name. SBC, this is the namespace, SBC util filter. This is the SBC util filter, and we are calling the code writer filter, and this is the code writer filter. This is the class. Now I want to run this, so I will copy this and go to here and paste and enter, right? Now this time, is there any error? Let me check. Okay, remember one thing, that if you want to run this program, you have to run this program in this directory, right? What is the directory? This is the directory. So you have to copy this path and so let us check if we are in the same directory or not. 9.1.0.92. I can copy this and just close this and open again, right? Developer command, then cd to change the directory, root directory, cd, and paste. So now we are in the same directory. Next I will hit this. I'll paste here. You will see, just double check. This is the organization service. Location is user active document earlybound filter.cs. Username is given, password is given, namespace is earlybound, code writer is the namespace of the new project. The namespace is given here. You will see sbc util filter.dll. Right now I can hit enter. Now it is trying to read the metadata from the server, right? But this time it will not take much time, rather it will just to read the entities that I have added in the filter.xml, right? Whatever I have added here, only it will generate for these three entities, and the size will be significantly reduced because the size is the entity that I am reading this time is very less, right? So let us see how it is generating. So I'm just trying to I'll go to the location where it will generate. So here already it is generated the early bound for all entities, but now I'm expecting it will generate only for 3 entities that I have mentioned. So let us wait. Now if you see, it is now wrote 3 entities. Can you see that? Now if I'll go here in the document folder, you will see a new CS file is generated with 49 KB, right? Now I can copy this and paste it in my project. Right click and paste it. Once you paste it, it will be available here. Now this is the early bound class. Now as because we have added this class file that is generated, now I can use this one, this programming model. So this is called as early binding. So you understand how to do these things. Now you it depends on you that which programming model you want to use, that you can choose, right? So thank you for your time. I will share all these resources. I have already shared this project in GIT Hub. You can download for filtering, for only generating the entity class for selected entities, and plugins you can download any plugin and use it, right? I have already uploaded some plugins also here in my account, public account repository, right? So these are the account plugins you can download, and you can use the early bound or late bound as per your convenience. Thank you for your time watching this video. See you next time. Bye.